Hi everyone, we are going to talk about dialog boxes for file operations. We've been using a lot of dialog boxes in this course. Specifically, we've been using input box and message box a lot to interact with the user to get the user's input, which is very handy. It'd be even cooler if we can use a dialog box for the user to specify a computer file or a computer folder. We actually use these dialog boxes a lot when we use Microsoft products. For example, when we try to open a Word document or open an Excel document or try to save the file with a new name, we often are given a dialog box to complete that operation. So now you are a programmer in VBA, you can actually create a dialog box for your user to select a folder or a file, which is pretty cool. So we are going to make that happen by using the application object within that, the file dialog object, which is part of the application object sort of structure. So it'll be pretty much equivalent to open and save as dialog boxes that you've seen a lot in your daily lives. Now you can actually create this. You don't have to write them from scratch. All you have to do is to know how to use the Application.FileDialog object. There are 4 different available versions. They are specified by these built-in constant values. We talked about constant values before. These are names for basically a number. So msoFileDialogOpen is a number. I don't actually know what number it is, but we can actually look it up. But it's basically an integer that tells FileDialog the specific version or operation that you want to have. Okay, so there are 4 different versions. We have msoFileDialogOpen, FileDialogSaveAs, FileDialogFolderPicker, and FileDialogFilePicker. The first one, open, allows the user to select one or more files. You can select multiple files if you want to. These files have to be openable by Excel. You can also allow the user to specify a path name to save the current file as. Okay, so that's the save as version. The folder picker version allows the user to select a folder. Just picking a folder, you're not actually doing anything with the folder, but you're selecting a path. The file picker allows the user to select one or more file, a specific file name. So this is a multi-select option as well. So we're going to look at these with specific examples here. So I've written up some sample code behind each of these buttons. So let's take a look. So before I click the buttons, I want to go to Visual Basic and put, so the code is over here, examples. Okay, so we have 4 different buttons. There are 4 different subs. They're behind the button. So I'm going to put a stop. That way when we run through the code, we can pause and look at the code line by line. So the first one is open files. Okay, so we want to be able to allow the user to specify one or more files to open. All right, so this sub, we can walk through it. What we want to do is, the main thing is that we need to use Application.FileDialog. This is an object structure provided by VBA. What you want to do is you want to dim a new object, file dialog object. You want to dim this as this type of object. And then we set this new sort of object variable to Application.FileDialog, and we specify the version that we want. We want the first version, which is msoFileDialogOpen. Okay, basically, this is telling VBA that we want to pop a dialog box to allow the user to open one or more files. So that's the specific type of dialog box that we want to use. This dialog box which you will see it's pretty familiar to us. We use it all the time, pretty much every day. This dialog box has two buttons that are at the bottom of the dialog box. It's for these two buttons, open or cancel. Because the user can cancel the operation, we always want to check and make sure that the user did not cancel it, right? So we want to kind of abort and end the sub if the user chooses to cancel. Okay, so what I want to do is, because my files can be one or more files, I'm going to do is with this object, I am going to check if the user has canceled or not. Okay, dot show, this method will return true if the user clicks open, and it returns false if the user clicks cancel. So we can use dot show to determine what the user has done. Okay, so this dot show will return a Boolean value, true or false, and it'll be saved into not cancel. It's a Boolean variable that we have set up to store the result of dot show. Okay, so we want to check if not cancel is true. So if not cancel, if the user did not cancel, meaning the user clicked open, then we'll proceed, right? So we'll proceed only if the user did not click cancel. If the user clicked cancel, we'll just end, okay? But if the user did not click cancel, which means the user clicked open, then for each file in basically whatever the user has selected will be stored into the selected items collection. And then we can just use the for loop to iterate through each of the files and execute. So this will execute. So the dot selected items and dot execute, these are methods. Well, this is a collection. And this is a method of the my files object, which is a file dialog object of this type. Okay, so this type will have a certain, this file dialog has implemented a selected items collection, which stores all the items that the user has selected. And it has an execute function, which executes this open dialog request. Okay, so we'll go through the code. So with this file object, the file dialog object, we're going to check if the user has clicked cancel or not. Okay, so this is the file dialog. Very exciting. File open. So this is asking the user what the user wants to open. So I can say I want to open the file, say clock. Okay, I can actually select just one and click open, and this file has been opened. And that's the end of this sub, right? Now let's close this file. And now let me try this again. Open files. Okay, so I'll run through this again. And you'll see that if there are two buttons, open or cancel. If I cancel, then nothing will happen. The subroutine will just end. And now let me try this again. I can actually select two files. So I can select clock 1 and I can select Old Town 1. I can open, and now two files are open. So Old Town 1 has been open, and clock 1 has been open as well. So I have opened two files by using the dialog box. Pretty cool, right? All right, so you'll see that these are 4 different versions of the same object, file dialog. These are the 4 different options. So I'm going to run very similar code using these 4 different constant values to specify the different versions of the object. Okay, so save current file as. So the current file is this file. This dialog box is for file operations demo. This is the file that I have currently right now. So what I'm going to do is this version will allow me to save whatever current file I'm working on with a new name. Okay, so you can see that again, I will create a new file dialog object. And then I have a Boolean value to check if the user clicked cancel or not. And I'm going to set my new object to this version of the file dialog object. So this version called SaveAs. Okay, so I'm going to check if the user clicked cancel or not. Okay, this is where I get the file save dialog box. And I can choose to save my current file with a new name. So say I want to save it as new name, okay? And I'm going to save it as Excel workbook. When I save, I'm going to get this warning message because I've been using an Excel macro book. So Excel is asking me if I want to save in a macro-free workbook. Okay, I actually can only do this if I choose no. I will get an error message because this dialog box only allows you to save an Excel workbook. It does not save a macro workbook. So I have to choose yes here. Okay, and that's it. That's what this button does. Number 3 is to pick a folder. So let's try this. Oh, so let me, let me go back and just show you that the new name file has been saved actually. So right here, and I'm actually using new name, which is an Excel, it's a macro free workbook. So my button will no longer work. So I should probably stop over here and close this. I'm going to close this new name. Macro free book. I am going to go back and find my demo file. Okay, so I'm going to pick a folder now. Oh, so let me go to developer and to put a stop again. That way we can look at the examples. So we're looking at number 3 over here. I'm going to put a stop and then I'm going to run this button. Okay, so again, you will see that I have to set a new object to this version folder picker. Okay, so again, I'm going to check and make sure the user did not cancel. And when I do that, I actually pop open this browse dialog box. It allows me to pick a folder. So I can pick a folder. So let's say I pick the Zoom folder. And I click OK, and that's it. So in fact, I should probably put a stop over here so we can look at what happens. So let me pick a folder again, and I'll run through. Okay, so I'll pick the Zoom folder. And what happens is that the Zoom folder, so my folder is an object. We can now see this object has a bunch of properties. And one of the property is the selected items. So within the selected items, you can see item 1, which is what I selected, which is the Zoom folder. Okay, so I can actually access the selected items array. And the first item is what I chose. And that item will be saved into the path variable. Right now, the variable is empty. But once I run this path is now saved into this variable. And now we, my routine ends over here. But once you get this path, you can use the path to do all sorts of stuff later on. Okay. So that's it. for the third button, now let's look at the last button. So the last button, pick multiple files, very similar to pick a folder, except that in this particular case, we can pick multiple files. When you pick a folder, you can only pick one folder at a time, but with files, you can do multi-select. So let's try this. Okay, so I can actually choose clock and Old Town, both files. Well, the routine has ended. That's not very exciting. So let me make sure that we put a stop over here. Okay, that's what I forgot to do. So what I want to do is I want to show you how I save the files into an array. Okay. So let me try this again. Okay, so I have a new file dialog object. This object is going to be of this file picker type. Okay, one new thing that I have done here is that I actually have a dynamic array, file array, which doesn't have an upper bound. So that means this is dynamic. The size of this array is flexible. And I'm going to use this to store all the file names that the user has selected. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to redim it as 0 just to make clear everything out of that array and make it size 0. Okay, I am going to check if the show not cancel. So I'm going to pop the picker and I'm going to see what files the user has selected. So say I select 2 files. Let me try to select clock and Old Town. So I can do a multi-select. Okay, and the selected items, if you look at my files, this object, you will see that in the selected items array, I now have 2 items, item 1 and item 2. So item 1 is clock, item 2 is Old Town, and then I can use the for loop to loop through each of the items here and save them into my dynamic array, file array. Right now, the file array is, let me see. Right now, the file array has only the upper bound is 0, okay? But what I can do is I can redim and preserve and make it give it one extra space. So that's what this line is about. And now I've executed that. Now you can see I have redeemed and preserved this and increase the number of elements by 1. So now this array has 2 spots, 0 and 1. Okay, so I'm going to put my first file, which is clock. The first file is clock because I'm iterating through each of the 2 files within this array. So the first one is clock, and I'm going to put the clock file name or file path into the upper bound, sort of the last item of this array. So this file name is going to go into file array of 1. So it'll go in this one. So let's see if that happens. Okay, so you can see file array of 0 is still empty, but file array of 1 now has this file path clock over here, which is the first item. So item 1 gets stored into array element 1, which makes sense. So that's exactly what this code segment does. And now I'm going to iterate through the next file. So the next file now is Old Town. It's the second item over here. And I am going to redeem and preserve, meaning that I'm going to expand this array to having 1 extra element. So after this line of code, I should see file array 2. So I'm going to increase it by the upper bound by 1, but I'm going to preserve everything, meaning that I'm not going to erase clock. Okay, so this item will remain in this slot, but then I'm going to create an extra space to store my new file. Okay, so if we look at file array, you will see that now it has 3 spots. This new spot is labeled 2. and it's empty right now, so it's ready. It's a new space that's ready to store my new file name. So my new file name is Old Town. I'm going to put this line of code, we'll put this file name into this new spot. Okay, and that's it. We are done. Hopefully this demo helps you understand how to use these file dialog boxes, which are very handy, very useful, very interactive, and hopefully you'll have a lot of fun building them. Thank you.